We talk about death constantly, perhaps more than any generation before us. We talk about it in numbers, in charts, in statistics that slide past our eyes too fast for grief to form. Deaths in wars, deaths in pandemics, deaths reduced to headlines that live for a day and vanish into collective amnesia. Death is everywhere, yet almost never close. We keep it at a distance as a survival mechanism, because if we allow ourselves to look at it for too long, something inside us fractures. Thinking about your own death is not neutral. It is not an intellectual exercise. It is corrosive. The idea that everything can simply stop, without warning, without meaning, without continuity, has the power to paralyze an entire life. What is the point of waking up tomorrow if everything ends the same way? What is the value of loving, building, suffering, resisting, if the final destination is the same absolute silence? When we sit with that question long enough, anxiety appears. Not as a thought, but as pressure, a weight in the chest, a visceral unease. What happens when the brain shuts down? Is there relief? Is there terror? Is there something or nothing at all? And if it is nothing, what is nothing? We have no experience of non-existence. We have never been absent from ourselves. So imagining the end of consciousness is like trying to see without eyes. At the core, almost everyone wants the same thing: to continue. Not necessarily to live forever in a young body or a perfected life, but to continue being, to continue feeling, to continue remembering, to continue recognizing those we love. Perhaps belief in life after death is not a sign of elevated spirituality, but of deep attachment. The uncomfortable question is this: does our desperate desire for continuity point to some spiritual truth? Or does it simply expose how terrified we are of disappearing? For a long time, science treated death as an instant event, a period. The heart stops, the lungs cease, the brain shuts off, end. But that view has begun to collapse. We now know that death is not a moment, it is a process. When the heart stops beating, the brain loses oxygen, and normal neural activity halts. Technically, the person is dead. And yet, not everything ends there. Some people return from that state. People who, by every medical definition, should not have survived. Roughly 1 in 10 report some form of conscious experience while clinically dead. We call these near-death experiences. But the term is misleading. If something were truly dead, it would not return. Perhaps these are not near-death experiences, but returns from death. The accounts differ, but the patterns are unsettlingly similar. A tunnel, a sensation of movement, the perception of observing one's own body from outside, memories surfacing without order or control, familiar faces, loved ones, an overwhelming sense of peace. This should comfort us, but instead, it creates a deeper problem. If the brain is not functioning, who is having the experience? If neural activity has ceased, where is consciousness coming from? Or perhaps it never truly ceased. Recent studies suggest that in the final moments, the brain may enter a state of extreme hyperactivity. Gamma waves surge with unusual intensity. Regions tied to attention, memory, and perception synchronize. As if, upon sensing imminent collapse, the brain releases everything at once. Maybe the life flashing before your eyes is not a metaphor. Maybe it is the breakdown of the filter that normally limits consciousness. Everything becomes accessible, everything at once. Childhood memories, forgotten details, fragments we never knew were still there. Not because there is another dimension, but because the dying brain stops conserving energy. This is not transcendence. It is a system's final attempt to persist. And still, this does not explain everything. Some resuscitated patients report details they should not have perceived. Conversations, objects, movements. A woman described a shoe on a hospital window ledge that was not visible from her bed. Coincidence? Post-event memory construction? Or something we do not yet understand? Science has no final answers, and it may never have them. What we do know is that even after cardiac arrest, the brain may still be hearing, which raises a strange possibility. Perhaps we should speak to the dead, not because of cheap mysticism, but because of humanity. Say what was trapped, what was never said, what we always thought could wait. Maybe no one is listening, but maybe that is not the point. In some spiritual traditions, death was never considered an end. It was considered a dangerous transition. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is a disturbing and deeply human text, the Bardo Thodol, often called the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It was not written for the living. It was written to be read to the dead. The premise is simple and unsettling. After death, consciousness continues, confused, disoriented, vulnerable. The text serves as a guide, an attempt to orient a mind that has just lost its body. It promises no heaven, no eternal happiness. It promises only one thing, a chance not to return. Because in this view, birth is not a blessing. It is the restart of a cycle of suffering, desire, attachment, loss, death, repeating endlessly. Liberation is not living longer. It is stopping. Not in the modern nihilistic sense, but in the sense of ending the attachment that forces rebirth. And yet, even this offers little relief from the heaviest burden of death, separation. Even if there is rebirth, even if there is continuity, we still lose those we love. We still say goodbye. There are unsettling reports of young children who claim to remember past lives, names, places, details too specific to ignore. Some cases were investigated with rigor, others collapse under skepticism. Maybe there is something there, maybe there is not. But even if there is, it does not solve the central problem. Children grow, the memories fade, the previous identity dissolves. Even if continuity exists, it is not us. And perhaps this is the hardest truth. No matter what comes after, this version of you, with these fears, these memories, this particular love, will end. Death is not only the end of consciousness, it is the end of a unique perspective. Perhaps death is not really about the future. Perhaps it is about the present. Not about what comes next, but about what is being lived now. If your life passed before your eyes today, what would you see? A sequence of automated days, chronic fear, endless postponement, or something that justified the pain of existing? Death does not teach us to live better by promising something later. It teaches us because it removes all guarantees. Nothing is secured, nothing is saved, nothing is waiting. And maybe that is exactly what makes life bearable. Not because it has meaning, but because it is finite. Every choice carries weight. Live as if nothing is waiting on the other side. And still, choose honesty. Because in the end, if there is something after, you have lost nothing. And if there is nothing, at least this life was not wasted. There comes a point when the question of what happens after death stops being curiosity and becomes exhaustion. Not hope, fatigue. The fatigue of existing within limits we never chose, of carrying a body that deteriorates, a mind that fragments, and time that never slows. Perhaps the mistake lies in our obsession with after, as if death were a doorway, as if the universe owed us continuity. Reality does not behave like a human narrative. It does not close arcs. It does not reward effort. It does not grant meaning for merit. The most honest mysticism begins when we accept this. There is something deeply disturbing about the idea that the cosmos functions perfectly without us. Stars are born and die without witnesses. Galaxies collide in absolute silence. Everything happens independently of consciousness. Maybe true spirituality is not believing we are special, but accepting that we are disposable. And still, we feel. Because we were thrown here with exposed nerves. Because consciousness is not a prize, it is a burden. It allows us to perceive the abyss and forces us to look. Some call this a gift, others a curse. There is no contradiction. Ancient traditions rarely treated death as a single event. They saw it as a gradual dissolution, layers unraveling, identities loosening. There was no urgency to define what remained, because defining was already a form of violence. The modern problem is not a lack of answers, but an excess of artificial certainty. Organized heavens, bureaucratic hells, hierarchies, rewards, punishments. These reveal more about human fear than about death itself. Perhaps there is no judgment, no welcome, no narrative at all. Perhaps consciousness does not go anywhere. Perhaps it simply disorganizes, like smoke losing form in air, like a wave returning to the ocean without leaving a trace. This is not philosophical emptiness. It is metaphysical humility. There is something cruel about how life insists on continuing, even when meaning has collapsed. The heart beats without consent. The lungs breathe while the mind begs for silence. This raises a difficult question. What if death is not liberation? What if it is simply the final failure of an exhausted system? Dark mysticism does not promise rest. It observes. It observes that many die afraid, that few leave in peace, that total acceptance is rare. Not because people did not try, but because accepting one's own erasure demands an almost inhuman detachment. Perhaps attachment is structural. Perhaps living without clinging is impossible. Identity, name, memory, love. And perhaps that is why death hurts so much. It removes everything at once. There is a quiet sadness that follows those who think too much about these things. It is not ordinary depression. It is excess lucidity. The realization that most human suffering does not come from pain itself, but from the frantic attempt to escape it. We build stories, systems, transcendences, all to avoid a simple, brutal fact. Existence did not ask to exist. No soul signed a contract. No consciousness chose to be born. And yet we are held responsible for living well, loving correctly, dying peacefully. This view does not reject spirituality. It rejects comfortable lies. It accepts that there may be no final redemption, no cosmic resolution. That death may be the last limit we cannot cross with language. Strangely, something shifts here. When we stop demanding that death explain itself, life begins to reveal itself more honestly, without imposed purpose, without pre-written destiny, without guarantees. Each gesture exists on its own. Each encounter becomes unrepeatable. Each moment carries weight that was once outsourced to later. This perspective does not wait. It endures, despite emptiness, despite uncertainty, despite finitude. Not because it believes in reward, but because the only alternative is numbness. And perhaps this is the most radical form of spirituality, to exist without promise. In the end, the question may not be, is there life after death? But rather, what do we do with consciousness while it still burns? Because it is not eternal, and it is not light. It is an unstable flame, sustained by fragile matter, destined to extinguish. This view does not try to snuff it out sooner. It simply refuses to pretend it will not go out. And paradoxically, this is where a strange reverence appears, not for the universe, not for gods, but for the moment. Because this moment, with all its pain, confusion, and imperfect beauty, is everything we truly have. And perhaps that is the maximum reality allows. Before you go, let me say this quietly, without urgency. If you're still here, listening until the end, it already means something. In a world that rewards distraction, your attention is not small. It's time. It's presence. It's a choice. These videos exist because there are people on the other side willing to sit with uncomfortable questions. People who don't just want noise, but depth. People who stay, even when the topic hurts a little. If you want to take that connection a step further, becoming a channel member is a way of saying, "This space matters to me. Keep going." Membership helps sustain the work, but it also brings you closer. You get access to exclusive content, deeper reflections, and a quieter place where ideas aren't rushed or diluted. It's not about status. It's about belonging to something intentional. And if, in a specific moment, a video resonated deeply with you, the Super Thanks feature is a simple way to acknowledge that impact. Not as an obligation, but as a gesture. A way of returning something to what gave you pause, clarity, or company in silence. That said, hear this clearly and honestly. Just watching is already help. Sharing the video is help. Coming back is help. You don't owe anything. Your presence is not taken for granted. But if you choose to support, whether by becoming a member, using Super Thanks, or simply staying, you're part of what allows this space to exist without compromise. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you, in whatever way feels right to you.